Hey, how you doing? I am Brendan. Today we're going to walk through installing LambdaMOO 1.8.1 from a GitHub repository. I'm going to be installing this onto an EC2 instance that I've spooled up. It's running Ubuntu 14.04. It is a very straightforward AWS setup. If you are going to be doing this in AWS, a couple things to remember. The Moo starts on, I believe, port 7777, so you'll need to open that up if you want to connect to it from the outside world. I'm not going to go into how you do that or how to set up an EC2 instance. You could also just be doing this on a Mac or a Linux terminal. Some of the commands won't match up exactly, and I haven't done this in a while, so we're going to be debugging and reading help files to figure out what the hell we need to do. So this is a fresh EC2 instance, so a couple of things. Since we're going to be using Git, we need to install Git, basically. So I'm going to apt. As you can see, I was testing a little bit before, and as you can see, this is just a basic thing, no big deal. So apt get install git. Okay, so I'm going to sudo apt get install git. So we're installing Git. I don't know what this is. Failed to fetch. apt get update. Whoops. So while this is doing its thing here, I want to talk to you a little bit about Moo programming. If you are not familiar with Moo programming, and this is you just starting out, there's going to be another set of videos. You should check this channel. Subscribe, I guess. People are always saying that in the videos that I watch, so feel free to subscribe. In these other videos, we'll talk about Moo programming, but I'll give you a brief introduction during this video series. This is my GitHub, 7x, SEVENECKS, and in this I've got the new Moo programming guide, which is literally just the old Moo programming guide converted to HTML5 and optimized for the web. It's got some style sheets, and I've gone through it piece by piece. It's not done yet, so don't complain to me when you get to the bottom and it looks like crap. I've gone through it and I've added, some CSS, and I've also added my own comments and my own takeaways and best practices from the 13 years experience that I have coding in Moo and being a coder on Syndom, which is a cyberpunk role-playing game that runs on LambdaMOO, runs on a LambdaMOO server, a modified one with some custom modifications, but really it's pretty straightforward LambdaMOO server stuff, and we haven't really written any of our own server patches. We'll talk about server patches a little bit. So this is just a lot of the takeaways that I have. And I think that it's a little bit more well-rounded for beginners. So if you're going to start out, feel free to clone this repository and just load up moo.html, and you should be okay. So I found this BASP guy or gal, and they have a LambdaMOO backup, which it just appears to be a LambdaMOO source code. So we're going to use this. There are other LambdaMOO servers. It's weird, right? So 1.8.1 was the last official, real, super official release. Then there were a bunch of patches that came after that. And those patches were created by other people. And they're technically maybe could be considered 1.8.1 if you patched all the way up. And then there is there's some other maintainers. There's a guy named Todd who does Stunt, which is like a rewrite of LambdaMOO in C++. And I believe he also does GammaMOO, which is basically LambdaMOO 1.8.3 or 1.8.4. It's not super official, but it fixes some memory leaks. It adds additional functionality like built-in file input-output stuff that you don't need to apply patches to do. And it basically brings together a bunch of other patches. There are a couple API changes to some stream functions or turning things into streams that I found where I had to like manually patch some stuff. And I'm not a C programmer, so I can't believe I did it. We're not going to really go into that stuff. What we are going to do is just set up a basic LambdaMOO and connect to it. So the first step is going to be cloning that repository. So I got the link. I'm going to go into my terminal here, make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Hopefully you can see that well. And let's find a directory. Exit pwd Ubuntu. So we'll just we'll just do it here. Git clone LambdaMOO. All right, so we've cloned LambdaMOO. So let's go in there, and we've got all these files and a couple of directories. cd doc, what's in doc? Core userman and progman, cool. So this is a little bit aftermarket stuff apparently. So the first thing we need to do is check out the README file. So in the interest of doing that in a more visible way, I will do that from here. So another thing to keep in mind here, even if you compile LambdaMOO, right, you still need a server source, right, a database. I'm sorry, if you compile the server source, you still need a database, right? So one little confusing thing is there is LambdaMOO, the server. There's LambdaMOO, the MOO. There's an actual MOO, a multi-user, object-oriented dungeon called LambdaMOO, which is still online. It's one of the longest-running ones, obviously, probably the first, created by Pavel Curtis or whoever the original guy is. I think I got his name right. I should know that better. And then there's LambdaMOO, the database. So there's the server source code, which does the server stuff. But then there's the actual database, which has the players or characters, the wizards, who are like the heads. You know, they have all the power. They can actually program. And then there are just the regular characters. But with the LambdaMOO database, a lot of development for the actual game and the engine was done in the MOO programming language. So it's like they built the source code, and then they built the foundation of the whole environment in MOO itself, which is really cool. So you have access to all that stuff, but only if you use the LambdaMOO database, which we'll get to a little later. So this source that we just cloned has a minimal DB, right? That is like the bare minimum to get started. You should not use it. It's a really, like, there are no commands written in MOO to make your life easier. We're not really going to get to that. We're just going to get a minimal DB up and running, and then in another video we'll talk about getting like a LambdaMOO DB going. And if you hear anything about to jump onto this desk, I have cats. So, you know, they're just chilling around. So we're going to get minimal DB up and running, but again, it has like the bare absolute minimum. I would not recommend trying to make a game with it because it will be a hellish experience. I wouldn't recommend trying to use it at all. It's really just the basics. This documentation is not the greatest if you don't know what the hell you're doing. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I'm gonna read it out loud a little bit, just so we can kind of get what we need. So we're gonna need shconfigure, which I believe is bundled on pretty much every Linux system should have something like this. However, if you were to use like LambdaMOO, something that their documentation doesn't actually state, and I had to go to the MOO Talk mailing list on Google Groups, which I recommend you join. I will actually make a note to put that in the show notes. MOO Talk mailing list and LambdaMOO source I had to get on the MooTalk mailing list to find an old old post that the guy had said about how to actually use the new build system that he's got. Because I'm not a C programmer, again. So I don't know this stuff. Some of this stuff, maybe it's just like totally makes sense to you, and you've already skipped 54 minutes into this video, or however long it's going to take us. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. So people compiling on any machine should only need to do the following. shconfigure. All right, so let's do that. shconfigure. Sorry, but I can't figure out how to find the C compiler here. Does that mean we need to install a C compiler? Sorry, I can't figure out how to find an ANSI C compiler here. Compiling this program requires such a compiler. Do I have GCC? I do not have GCC. Sudo apt-get install GCC. So GCC is I believe, the GNU C compiler, and we are now installing it. So while that's installing, back over here, what's the next command we're going to run? We're going to edit the file options.h. Okay, well, it'll take a couple of minutes trying to figure out various features in your operating system, blah, blah, blah. When it's finished poking on the system, it'll print a little note concerning which network options will work. I don't understand the network options or how they work, so we're just going to kind of go with the default or whatever it tells us. Then we're going to edit options.h, choosing the options appropriate to our needs and our local configuration. This is where we would probably define networking and probably the port. Choosing the options printed by configure in the first step. Then we'll type make, which will make the C files, hopefully compiling without errors. And then we should now have a working LambdaMOO server. Okay, so that's done installing. So let's run shconfigure. So the following network options will probably work. Cool. We'll copy that just so we have it. Now we have to edit options.h, and I'm using Vim here. You don't have to use Vim, or if you're running this on your local Mac, you could open it in Sublime or something else. There's some pretty good code comments here. We're telling, you can say unfork checkpoints, log commands, out-of-band prefix. Out-of-band prefix is like used for connecting, if you want to connect outside apps and other things. I don't do that stuff. It's not my my deal. Max stack depth is like dealing with recursion. So if you wanted to recursively call a function, you couldn't do it more than 50 times. Ticks are covered in the LambdaMOO programming guide, but basically like every verb, which is like a function that you run, has a certain amount of ticks, and if it runs out of ticks, it's immediately killed. This is because the moo is single-threaded. Like think about 50 Marios waiting in front of a pipe that they want to go down, but they can only go one at a time. That's the way your players are. So each command can only be executed one at a time, and the next command isn't executed until the previous command is finished, unless it's suspended, which we're not really going to talk about. I really recommend reading the LambdaMOO programming guide. It will go over a lot of that stuff. So we're just going to go with NP and TCP. We've got the default connect file, which is what actually like shows up when you connect to the moo, like a splash page or an MOTD on an IRC server. Then we've defined the port, which we're just going to leave as it is. I don't know that we have to change any of this other stuff, so I'm just not going to. Just scroll down here and see if there's any other random things that we need to look at. Add a band prefix, a bunch of configuration. Yeah, we're just gonna get the fuck out of here. All right, so we've edited options. We didn't actually do anything. And now we're gonna run make. Make is not installed. Okay, now we run make. It's doing some compiling. YACC is not. YACC command not found. All right. What the hell is YACC? install Ubuntu. So again, I don't know this stuff, and we're just going to install stuff quickly. An existing network connection, sudo apt-get update, install Flex. What the hell is Flex? Bison? I don't believe in this. Flex, NYACC, and Ubuntu. Alright, so we're going to just try this out. Again, this is on a random EC2 instance that I'm going to destroy after. So, you know, be careful copy and pasting from random Stack Overflow. Alright, make. Cool, so that seemed to work. Now, let's go back to add this to the show notes. Let's go back to the README. If you know compiling projects, okay. So to start the server, now one thing to keep in mind about starting the server, if you just run the /moo command, it's going to run in the foreground, and your moo will stay up for as long as your terminal process stays up, I believe. So you're going to have to put that into the background, basically. You can Google, like, move a running process to the background, or start a process with no hup, or whatever it is. Again, not a sysadmin. I use a Mac, but, you know, like, I'm not great at this stuff. So it's all a learning experience. Hopefully you're learning too. So let's look at this little shell script. Vim restart. Restart db prefix port. Okay, so we're going to do /restart minimal db minimal and 7777. See if that works. It did not work. Restart command not found. /restart.sh. I swear there's a restart. There is a restart. So let's see if that works. Also, I was told that I shouldn't run the moo as root. What the hell is this? Alright, so we're just going to run /moo minimal db. So, alright, /moo usage -e-l for log file, input db, output db. So the moo checkpoints routinely, and basically that dumps your database and any changes you've made and verbs you've added and characters that have been created and properties that you've set on objects or objects that have been created will be dumped to that output file. So you don't want your input and your output file to be the same. I would do like minimal2.db. And we're going to skip the port. It'll start on the default 777 port. 7777. So hey, the move started. Now I wonder if we can, let's just go start a process in the background, or move a process to the background, move running processes to background, Control Z. Okay, Control Z. That seems to have stopped it. Alright, jobs stopped BG1. Okay. Does that mean it's running? Let's try telnet. Localhost 7777. So we're connected. So let's see. And parents me. Nothing. Dot prod. So we're connected, but there's nothing here, right? It just automatically connected us to wizard. Number 3, so we have all the privileges. We have the .wizard property. And then the way to program a verb on MinimalDB is to actually do .program object verb. So we do number 3, say stuff, right? So we just do .verb number 3, say stuff, this, this, no, okay. I don't even know how to do it. But you could do like, does it even have this, verbs? Nothing, I don't know. Okay, so we did what we said we were going to do. We compiled this moo. I don't even know what is happening. So we accomplished what we wanted to do. We compiled LambdaMOO. We ran MinimalDB. In the next video, we're going to get the LambdaMOO database, which is not terrible like this and filled with nothing. So check out the next video. And thanks for watching.